Welcome to Digitalization Tech Talks, the podcast where we dive into the transformative world of technology within the industrial landscape. In today's episode, we'll be digging into a very exciting real-life example of a topic we have talked about on our podcast quite a few times. Now, interestingly enough, it has mostly been peripheral in nature, and we haven't really touched on how this challenge was solved, but that is going to change today, which is really exciting. We'll hear how a company has successfully scaled a technology implementation, not just from 1 to 5 or 6 plants, which can be challenging enough, but we'll go way beyond that, which is really cool. We'll talk about how you take a fairly complex technology solution focused on asset performance, data integration, machine learning insights, and implement that at a single manufacturing site. And if that wasn't challenging enough, we'll also get some insights into how this solution was then scaled across more than 40 sites globally. In an environment where technology implementation and subsequent scaling can be very difficult, and also the difference between failure and success, I'm very excited to hear how this was achieved. And as always, it will also be interesting to hear some of the challenges that had to be overcome to get there, and the learnings that our guests will share that will help others in their path to success. So what are you looking forward to the most in this episode, Don?
Hi, Jonas. Good to be with you again today. And I think I'd like to coin a new phrase: digitalization solutions that cannot scale will fail. And we've seen it before across the process industries where a new technology is applied to a variety of different use cases, works great in a proof of concept stage of things, but it's never really deployed because of limitations expanding it across a single plant and then ultimately to the whole fleet of plants. And we've heard of scaling successes from some of our past guests, including Merck's Sebastian Hartner, regarding the deployment of module type packages or MTP. And we also heard from Mike DeSauer regarding the rollout of generative AI, and that's in his role as a data science manager. So we know it can be done, and I'm eager to learn more about how it's accomplished.
Yes, that's a very good point, Don. So listeners, go check out those 2 episodes to learn more. They are episodes 37 and 38. With that, let's meet our guests. First off, we have David Kaltmayer from Bayer. David is Director of Manufacturing Systems and Products, and he is responsible for manufacturing operation systems within that group. Our second guest is Brandon Johnson from IndX. He leads IndX's manufacturing operations management services pillars and has been helping manufacturers reach their digitalization goals for more than 15 years. So welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jonas and Don. Yeah, my name is David Kaltmayer. I am the Director of Manufacturing Systems and Products, as Jonas has said, for our Bayer Crop Science Division in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm an accomplished, results-oriented global leader spanning 30 years of transforming our automation and process control systems and digital technologies within manufacturing, and recognized for sustainable, reliable, and visionary results. My passion is to really drive digital transformation. I'm an electrical engineer by education and had various electrical and instrumentation engineering roles within Monsanto and Bayer over the last 30 years. Where I've seen my career and where my passion lies is in system integration, the convergence of IT and OT, and the ability to make production data available and accessible to the broader organization.
This is Brandon Johnson. Thanks for having us. It's really wonderful to be here, and I'm excited to talk about the great success we've had with Dave and with Bayer on this particular digitalization initiative. And excited to share some lessons learned with the audience of your show here.
Excellent. Thank you very much to both of you for those introductions. I'm really excited to have you join us here today. Now, first off, why don't you tell us a bit about Bayer and IndX and what brought your 2 companies together? I'm sure that's an interesting story.
Sure. Many know Bayer as a Bayer aspirin. It is a pharmaceutical company, but we are a life science company and a global leader in healthcare and nutrition. Bayer's Crop Science Division is the world's largest leading agricultural enterprise with businesses in crop protection, seeds and traits, and digital farming, with over 100 global manufacturing locations. Our leadership in agriculture provides tailored solutions for farmers to plant, grow, and protect their harvests using less land, water, and energy. Brandon and I first met and formed this partnership with the two companies in 2017, when at that time Monsanto started a journey of looking for an enterprise global template approach to building a manufacturing execution system program. And Industry Excellence was chosen as our preferred partner. And we've been working on that journey and transitioned a lot of that into some of the other manufacturing operations tools, such as OEE.
Yeah, Engineering Industries Excellence, or IndX. We're a global division of the engineering group and a leader in industrial digital transformation. So we help clients like Bayer design, build, and integrate, deliver holistic technology solutions covering end-to-end life cycles for their industrial products and processes. And as Dave mentioned, we started partnering with Bayer several years ago on initially an MES planning and consultation project that grew into a large multi-continent implementation, and have continued to work with them on various initiatives over the years. And today we'll talk a little bit about the OEE work that we've done with Dave and his team at Bayer.
Well, thanks, guys. Really do appreciate you joining us today. And it sounds like you've worked on a lot of exciting things together, including this use case around OEE. So why don't we just start with that, talk a little bit more about it. What is OEE and why is it a focus area for Bayer?
Sure. I'll take that, Don. Like most companies, Bayer has had many initiatives around Six Sigma, Lean, and these tend to come in cycles. We're yet in another cycle with our production system concept, really focusing on servant leadership and Lean. But the promise of Lean alone is leaving our organization short of achieving our goals and achieving maximum value. Incorporating digital with our production system approach will transform into a digitally enabled product supply in the future with data accessibility and availability. So OEE, what is it? Doing a quick Google search, one would get this definition. OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. It's the gold standard for measuring manufacturing productivity. Simply put, it identifies the percentage of manufacturing time that is truly productive. But how is it innovative? It's been a standard KPI in manufacturing for many years and is a key measurement into the availability, performance, quality of our assets. It's a way to see if we're producing when we are supposed to, and are we the most effective in the use of our assets? The percent of manufacturing time that is truly productive. But for me, I like to tell the story and draw this similarity to our personal fitness. Think about heart rhythms, pulse rate, step counts. All these are known KPIs and been around for thousands of years. They're not new. Heart rate's been a measurement for a long time. So what's innovative about having a smartwatch? And why do we invest in these technologies? Is it just because it's cool or the latest trend? That may be part of the answer, but we invest in these because it's affordable, it's scalable, can reach more and more people with one application, provides insights, changes behaviors, and provides us continuous improvement that we can see and monitor over time. We get insights into ourselves, we're the asset, and we learn how to leverage the data to make improvements in our lives. We want to understand performance. We need KPIs to learn how to make improvements and set goals and evaluate our past trends. We need data and analytics to ensure our assets are performing as designed. So just as our smartwatches do more than just tell time, the assets and machinery in our facilities do more than just the intended step of processing. We can equip these assets with more instrumentation and leverage the technology to get the insights needed to measure, adjust, and improve our capabilities of producing chemicals and processing seeds. And that's how I like to look at OEE.
Well, thanks. That was a great example from real life. As I sit here looking at my own smartwatch, I can see I need to get working on my step count today. So I'll have to focus on that after we're done the recording. So thanks for that. Now that we have a general understanding of the use case, can you tell us about this specific project? And one of the things that we often find is there are challenges along the way. Can you tell us about some of the challenges you faced along the way?
Yeah, maybe I'll start off with that. First of all, when this project started, Dave and I and the rest of the team were really wrapping up a long, multi-year MES implementation We had systems live in Europe, in South America, in North America, and we were thinking about how to scale that solution. And what Dave and his team challenged us with was, how can we take a subset of that MES solution that we can implement more quickly in more facilities on a more aggressive timeline and get some quick wins to help build momentum as we strategized how to roll out the larger MES solution, kind of globally within the Bayer organization. And we took that back and we, after some brainstorming, decided on OEE as a good place to start. OEE is great because it's relatively well understood, relatively lightweight, and gives quite a lot of value, right out of the box. And we decided to start with a pilot project at Bayer's Constantine, Michigan facility. But at that point, we were really in pilot mode and focused on a traditional OEE implementation using, on-prem servers and installation, existing out-of-the-box software. And so the challenges that we had were really the traditional project challenges. We had to understand, where are we going to get the data? What is the automation system at that Constantine facility? Does the data that we need to drive the OEE calculations already exist, or do we need to get it from some other third-party system? So it was really the traditional technical challenges that you would expect in a manufacturing IT project. Until we finished. In the end, we had a relatively straightforward, successful project. And then Dave and his team came back and looked at the solution. They were happy with the results, I think, in Constantine, but the question was, how do we go back to our original mandate for this and scale it quickly? Because the whole point was to look for something that we could scale across the organization ahead of the MES. And Dave, I guess you can talk a little bit about the scaling challenges you saw at that time.
Yeah, the typical timeline, as Brandon, talked about, one site, let's say a typical project waterfall approach, usually takes 7, 8, 9 months to stand up servers, install software, configure software, adjust the automation systems, ensure data quality, startup and checkout. All those tasks that we are familiar with our projects just takes time. And we were on an accelerated timeline. We wanted to provide this KPI to partner with our OE program as they were teaching these sites how to use OEE in their continuous improvement efforts. And so we needed a solution that would scale faster. The typical challenges we had were around budgets. Think about 100 sites globally, or more than 100 sites globally. Budgeting is typically the bottleneck. Our capital is prioritized based on business value and criticality to the company. And so some of these smaller sites, like our Constantine, Michigan site, are sometimes left behind because they're not the number one priority for the business. And so how do we put a solution in that we can reduce the footprint and the costs and scale it faster to get the value out of that, knowing that we have these limitations in our funding processes?
So it seems like you had the scaling problem, or at least some scaling challenges, I should say, and that seems to be one of the biggest challenges in general with scaling when it comes to technology implementation. So if you could you explain to our listeners how you solve that scaling problem, and perhaps you could also talk about some of the additional challenges, new challenges that this introduced?
Yeah, sure. So to set the timeline, we were really having this conversation about 5 years ago. And so we knew there were some options. We looked at the technology available at the time. 5 years ago, cloud solutions were really starting to become prominent in the manufacturing industry. And we saw this as an opportunity to potentially leverage some of the newer cloud technology to accelerate the scaling of this OEE solution. But that it did come certainly with some challenges. First was just kind of the unknown. While Bear and and IndX had some experience with cloud solutions, we didn't have experience together within the manufacturing sites at Bear in this domain that we had been working together on for the last few years with that kind of technology. So there were questions about the typical cloud questions, data ownership. Bear, a lot of the internal stakeholders, I think, were hesitant to expose production data that is very proprietary and important and has a lot of strategic value that typically lived behind a firewall in the individual plants to a cloud solution. So there were a lot of discussions around what that would look like, the pros and cons and the security considerations around that. There was also the kind of the specter of standardization. All manufacturing programs start, I think, with a goal to standardize across multiple sites. But then once you actually try to do it, every site has their own special use cases, and they all have usually a very compelling story about why they're special and different from all the other sites in the organization. And so there's always some work to try to customize or extend a solution so that it can fit those edge use cases of a site. When you're in a cloud environment, typically it really is one solution, one front end, one back end being used by the entire organization. So there's potentially less room for those customizations, which is great from an IT perspective because standard solutions are easier to maintain over time. But it can be a difficult sale to the site stakeholders. And so the human element there was definitely something that we discussed. And then, lastly, we already had an OEE solution that we built on premises at this Constantine, Michigan facility. And there were questions about how do we leverage what we already built to make sure that we don't lose momentum and, frankly, waste some of the effort that we had in this original proof of concept. So, those were all some of the challenges that we discussed at the beginning of this second phase of the OEE program.
Yeah, I'm laughing a little bit internally because I think about my own change management curve with going to cloud. This was proposed by a couple IT guys before Brandon and I started looking at this, and I didn't want anything to do with it. One, we didn't from the OT side didn't trust our IT partnerships. We didn't understand. We didn't think they had the capacity, understood the availability needs of manufacturing data and manufacturing processes. So there was a lot of change management just on the technical side to even approach a topic like this. Brandon mentioned the pros. There's a lot of pros with this that I've discovered as the owner of a system with this. I don't have to update software. That's on the vendor now to update software, patches, ensure compatibility, ensure backwards compatibility with everything that they do in the solution. I have one solution now. I don't have to manage 100 different applications located on the site. I don't have to LCM servers at each one of these sites every 3 years when OS changes. I don't have to patch and update servers based on our security and compliance with our infrastructure systems. Some of the cons still for me, what isn't con about the system? It's cons in the way we think about our OT systems. And like I said, my own personal change curve is getting the right firewall security clearances to stream manufacturing data outside the manufacturing site, outside those four walls that we've been so accustomed to having, and getting that data into a cloud application. That was a huge challenge for us. And like I said, it's not a con, but just something that we had to consider to do. New security administration. We've moved to an Azure AD now versus local ADs at our site to manage the Active Directory of our users. But also with that comes pros about one place to manage that now within the application. So there's a lot of benefits on the configuration software sides of that. And believe me, having 27 years and that many sites to LCM servers and software and patches and everything else, that's a huge pro in my opinion. Talk about some of the organizational challenges besides the change management. It is that standardization. Now that we have one application, this really forces us to standardize our processes at all those sites. If we want to use the same configuration and the same rules of data ingestion or calculations, we have to standardize. And so that was a huge effort for us to make sure that we had to do our homework and all the work ahead of time to make sure we had standard inputs into the software. That's our automation standardization, just really trying to keep it simple, trying to make sure that we all use the same effort and the same programs. Yeah, so just from a support standpoint, like I said, I mentioned that just the software piece of it, but it's a partnership. We do partnership with industry excellence to help us maintain and provide application maintenance support. They work with all of our sites globally. They are the level 2 support and level 3 support for this application for us. We do have invested resources in each one of our regions globally to help us with level 1 support and to triage things to understand if it's an automation issue or if it really is the application in the cloud that we need support and help with.
So you've obviously succeeded in the implementation of the OEE system since you are now live in more than 40 sites worldwide, which is really, really impressive. So first of all, congratulations on that achievement. Now, how have you been able to turn the fact that you now have this technology available in so many plants into tangible business results for Bayer? You mentioned early on that some of the ways that you decide where to spend your budget money has to do with where there is tangible business results. So I'm assuming there must have been some pretty significant impact on the Bayer business as a result of this project.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question, Jonas. Yeah, that's always the thing question we get asked is what was the business value? And it is hard to capture true business value as far as exact dollar savings or euro savings. I think with this tool like OEE, one of the examples, we have 9 dedicated soybean processing facilities in the U.S. Where we take soybeans from our harvest, we receive them, clean them, condition them, treat and package during a season. So imagine this harvest window, it's very limited from October through December. Well, all that seed from the fields have to be harvested and they have to be brought in, processed, quality sampled, tested, and put onto inventory for next year's sales. And for our marketing system teams to get insights into what the inventory is for them to go out and sell for that next campaign. Well, this process, completed in a short time frame and availability of assets is essential to get the maximum throughput through these facilities to avoid downtime. So the play here is around downtime in this short harvest window. In this conditioning step, our OEE system was utilized and provided a time series analysis of the bottlenecks and availability loss in the conditioning process, which ultimately reduced the performance of the step. The use of this data was then leveraged to build the capital expenditure justification based on a replacement of old conditioning tower elevators and equipment and of procuring new equipment. By procuring the new equipment, the team demonstrated an 18% increase in our OEE in this conditioning process. And that's huge for us. And that's just 1 out of the 9. And so you take those learnings, and this is where best practice sharing comes in, tied to our OE program around our servant leadership and lean to be able to share these best practices. The team had no visibility into that before this, in this conditioning process. But by having the system, the team could easily identify this low-hanging fruit, focus their operational excellence program on it, and address it. Besides the 18% increase in OEE, the facility is able to produce more, has become a more reliable supplier to our customers. It's not just a one-time effort. It is a continuous cycle of plan, do, check, and act, and the next bottleneck will be addressed. I think about another example in our corn processing facilities. People know what corn on the cob is, right? They know the process of taking that husk off the corn and all the silk that comes with that corn. Well, imagine bringing in 30 million ears of corn a day. Yeah, 30 million into one facility that you have to dehusk, do that same process. And you have to know that corn has all the husks removed from it before you can bring it into your facility. Well, that process, it's fully automated. It utilizes imaging techniques to determine if the husk is removed, really the complete step of good quality or bad quality. But this particular site has 4 lines, six huskers per line. And just with that sheer volume of corn going through that facility, there's no way for an operator to visually see the performance and quality being affected by the dehusking step. But with the OEE system installed and the automation system providing that data, it was easy to see that huskers weren't performing that step appropriately. The team then takes action and addresses root cause and finds camera misalignments or in-feed speeds are too fast or other things that are affecting that performance. But these harvest windows are really short, and that seed has to move from field to facility to allow us to have that on inventory. Makes huge step changes. But like I said, it's not a one-time effort. It's a continuous cycle and chasing the bottlenecks with a system like OEE. Brandon, anything you want to add there?
I think you said it really well. OEE doesn't solve problems on its own. It's not magic. It helps you identify the problems and shows you where your bottlenecks are, where your choke points are in your process. And then it's really up to the organization, and I think this is where Bear has done a really great job, to apply the right remedy to whatever the data is showing you. So whether it's new capital equipment or whether it's just training of the operators on an existing process to improve their efficiency. And once you have the data, you can stop kind of groping blindly and really focus your efforts and your continuous improvement process to get the results that you're looking for. And the key when you start a project like this is to think about the long term, think about the continuous improvement cycle, because we started, back at the beginning of this story with one, on-prem installation of an OEE solution at one site in Michigan. And then we expanded to 40 sites, and we're still expanding because there are more than 40 left to go. But the getting the solution installed and used at the site isn't the end of the story. The solution is going to give you data that's going to lead to the next improvement, the next innovation, and having a plan for success. When your OEE project succeeds, you need to understand that it's going to lead to more insights and more projects after that. And you really need to have that long-term vision of how do we capitalize on the data that the solution is going to show us so that we can keep driving improvement in our process. And again, I think Bear has done a really great job with that over the years that we've been working with them.
So a lot of great successes. That's great to hear the outcome and some exciting things still to come. So that's great. As we move towards the end here of our interview, one of the things that we always like to leave our listeners with are some key takeaways or lessons learned. Are there some key lessons learned you could identify?
Yeah, just building on to what Brandon just mentioned about OEE and the 40 plus sites that we've scaled to. I mean, it's been nothing short of phenomenal in my career to see a technology. That's what I've been striving for, is how can I scale faster to provide this type of solution to plants. But listeners may be asking, well, why not all 100, right? What's the challenge of getting all of them immediately if it's so scalable? And it is. But this is just the technology side of it. Digital transformation is not just about technology. It's about people, process, and technology. And you have to assess the readiness of your sites each time, the readiness of the people to adopt. And those are huge pieces that if you don't invest in understanding that, putting in a solution, scaling it, getting the technology side ready is fine. But if people aren't there to use it and utilize the assets and the systems the way they're designed, you won't receive the benefits from it. And so just from our lessons learned within Bear, we developed a launch and adoption squad to help us with, because we do see the future of cloud computing being able to help accelerate other areas of our manufacturing operations or other parts of our production processes. And we have to get our people ready for that and help them understand and launch and sustain these solutions long term. That's one area. The other one is we've invested a lot in understanding the readiness from a technical maturity standpoint, from a people maturity standpoint, and how we can standardize processes across like sites out of this ecosystem that we have within Bear. And so I think those are some great learnings and great things that we are going to continue to use and operate with.
I would just add, 5 years ago when we started talking about this project and looking at cloud technology, as I said earlier, it was a little scary for everybody because this was new technology with new risks. And one of the things that Bear, I think to their credit, kind of made a leap of faith on was early adoption of the cloud solutions that ended up being the foundation of this OEE solution that's been rolled out to all these sites. At the beginning it was new software, and the software development roadmap was really in early stages. It wasn't as mature of a product as the on-prem solution that we had just implemented at the Constantine facility during the pilot. And so there were some questions about, does this do everything that we need it to do? And it's always a question and a risk when you're out on the cutting edge and you're an early adopter of new software. But some of the benefits of that, and I think Bear saw that, is we were able to partner with the software vendor who was Siemens, and look at their long-term development roadmap together with Bear. And since Bear was such an early adopter and such a large strategic customer, we were really able to work together and influence that software development roadmap. And Siemens was great about letting us prioritize in their roadmap the features and functionality that were going to have the most value for Bear going forward. And maybe everything wasn't there on day one, but because of that partnership and the leverage that we had being an early adopter, we were able to get more confidence that the features that we really needed would be there when we needed them, and we were going to have the support that we needed going forward. And it really did take a leap of faith at the beginning of the project, and we saw a lot of risk there. I think maybe we didn't understand the benefits at the beginning of the project, but it ended up working nicely during this program.
Thank you so much for that wrap up to both of you. It was especially interesting to hear about the collaboration between IndX, between Bear and Siemens as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for a great conversation to both of you. I thought it was extremely insightful, and I'm sure our listeners feel the same way, especially hearing about the great success of the scaling that you were able to do and the benefit that it's now providing to Bayer overall. Sounds like you still have some work to do with additional plants being brought online, but with the experience that you already have from scaling in as many plants as you have, I'm sure that's going to help you move things forward. So thank you very much to both of you for being with us here today.
Well, thank you. It's really been great.
Yeah, thank you, Jonas and Don. Really appreciate the opportunity to share this story.
Thanks again, David and Brandon. And with that, we're at the end of the episode. If you have any questions about any of the topics that were discussed here today about OEE, please reach out to David and Brandon directly. Their email addresses are included in the show notes. And as usual, Don and I are always open to your comments, your thoughts, your feedback on the show or the topics, and you can also find our contact information in the show notes. One thing I'd like to add here, that if you have any good suggestions for speakers or guests on the show, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you liked what you heard today, please help spread the word by rating the show. And if you're not already a subscriber and would like to be notified when new episodes are released, please subscribe to the series. Thank you for listening to this episode of Digitalization Tech Talks.